Today I'm going to talk a little bit about writing as a response to story. So, how to write about the beginning, middle, and end of a story for grade 1 and 2. And I'm going to use the book, The Very Impatient Caterpillar, which I've just read. So, you can listen to the book first or read the book, and then you can have a chance to do this activity with me. And then you could even do it with one of the other books that Mrs. Michael has read. And you can use the same structure. And this is a really great way to respond to writing. So, all of the response writing, when we're talking about beginning, middle, and end, is very similar. So, usually with stories, you have a beginning, and we've talked a little bit about this in class. You have a beginning, and at the beginning, there's usually the character or characters who is in the story. And there is also something called the setting. And the setting is where the story takes place, but it's also the time. So maybe it takes place in a mountain range, or maybe it takes place in a forest, or maybe it takes place in a city. Maybe it takes place a long time ago, or maybe it's present day. So it's also a little bit about the when. So your beginning would talk about those two things. The middle is really when we develop the problem in the story, or what the character wants. Every story usually has some kind of a problem or a mission that is difficult to achieve, a quest. So there's usually a problem that's introduced in the middle of the story. And I'm going to do a sad face for that. A problem. And at the end, usually we resolve the problem. So there's something called a solution. And things turn out usually correct or right again. So that's sort of the structure of a story. The beginning, middle, and end. There's usually the who and the setting. The middle is the problem, and the end is the solution. And when you understand it really well from reading other people's stories, then it makes it easier for you to understand it when you write your own. So when it comes to the impatient caterpillar, the very impatient caterpillar, I like to think about it in 3 stages. So I often divide my paper into 3. And what happened at the beginning, what happened in the middle, and what happened in the end. So at the beginning of the story, we see a caterpillar. So there's a little caterpillar. It doesn't have to be the most amazing drawing. It's just a sketch. So we see the caterpillar, and we see that he is going to transform, and he has his vision set on becoming a butterfly. So in the middle, we realize that he is not patient. So let's just say he's not patient. And he struggles with this all through the story. He wants to be a butterfly so badly, but he just can't handle waiting. Does not like to wait. Okay. And as the story goes on, he sort of struggles with that, and finally he gives in to the fact that he does have to wait, and he becomes patient. And he does, in fact, eventually become a very happy butterfly. So he sort of learns his lesson, except that at the end, the very, very end, he and his friends are going migrating, and he says, "Are we there yet?" Which sort of suggests that he hasn't completely learned his lesson, but he has solved the problem for now. And actually, that would be a really fun sequel to write. So when it comes to writing about a story, you just have to make it pretty simple. So I always like to start with the date. So let's say the date is April 30th, 2020, just to keep things simple. Okay? So I might start with our usual transition words of first, next, finally, or last. Those would be good ones to use for grade 1 because you already know those really well from your journal writing. So first, the caterpillar wants to become a butterfly. Next, He is not very patient. And you could talk about what that looks like. He has a hard time waiting. He does not like waiting to become a butterfly. Last, or finally, you could use the word finally, but you could also use the word last. Last, he learns to trust the process is one of the words that they, or phrases that they say, to trust. You could even say trust nature. He becomes a butterfly. And there you see, we've broken the story down into first, next, and last, beginning, middle, and end. Beginning is the setting, who's in the story. The middle talks about the problem, he's not patient, and the end talks about the solution. He finally becomes a butterfly. Now, if you want, you can always write the title somewhere on your page because then people know what you're talking about. So the title of the book was The Very Impatient Caterpillar. And that would be all you have to do for a beginning, middle, and end writing response. So you can choose any of our stories that we've read, and you could do something similar. The beginning, the middle, and the end. And it doesn't have to be 3 sentences long. It could be 1 or 2. You could just talk about what happens at the beginning, what's the problem, and then just tell us how it's solved. Okay? Can't wait to see your writing.